Janice, listen to me, okay? I know I lied about some things, but I can change.
Oh, I don't think so.
No, Janice, I promise. Don't do me like this.
You know their faces. You know their catchphrases. You probably feel like you know them. But the truth is, the smiling, happy-go-lucky characters on your favorite sitcoms are just that, characters. These are the 15 sitcom stars who were biggest jerks in real life. The story about the star from that big 90s family show is going to blow your mind. 1. Chevy Chase.
I mean, he's been club champion for 3 years running, and I'm no slouch myself.
Don't sell yourself short, Judge. You're a tremendous slouch.
Chevy Chase is a comedy icon, from his groundbreaking work on the first season of Saturday Night Live to his role as the lovable, disaster-prone dad Clark Griswold in the Vacation movies. He has made generations of people laugh. In more recent years, he had a huge comeback playing the old-fashioned and out-of-touch millionaire Pierce Hawthorne on the hit sitcom Community. On the show, Pierce was known for his inappropriate comments and for rubbing everyone the wrong way. As it turns out, that part of the character might not have been much of a stretch. Truth be told, Chevy Chase has a reputation that goes back decades for being incredibly difficult and unpleasant to work with. His fellow original cast members on SNL have spoken about his arrogance and his tendency to get into physical altercations. He famously got into a nasty backstage fight with Bill Murray when he came back to host the show. But his bad behavior wasn't just a thing of the past. During his time on Community, the drama continued. He openly complained about the show's writing and the long hours, and he would often storm off the set. Things got so bad that he ended up in a very public feud with the show's creator, Dan Harmon. He also reportedly made insensitive jokes at the expense of his co-star, Donald Glover. Eventually, he and the show parted ways before the final season in a cloud of bad feelings. For many in Hollywood, the friendly, bumbling dad from the movies is a far cry from the real man. His on-set grumpiness seems almost quaint compared to our next star, whose meltdown wasn't just behind the scenes. It was broadcast to the entire world for everyone to see. 2. Charlie Sheen.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go throw up and take a nap.
For years, Charlie Sheen was the king of television. His show, 2.5 Men, was the #1 sitcom in America, and he was the highest-paid actor on TV, making almost $2 million per episode. He played a version of himself, a hard-partying bachelor named Charlie Harper who lived in a beach house in Malibu. The show was a massive, unstoppable hit, and it seemed like nothing could go wrong. That is, until Charlie's real life started to spiral out of control in a very public way. Here's the thing, his wild lifestyle was never a secret, but in 2011, it exploded into a bizarre international spectacle. After the show went on hiatus so he could deal with his personal issues, Sheen went on a media rampage. He gave a series of strange interviews where he claimed he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA. He talked about being a warlock and constantly used the word winning to describe his chaotic state. He also publicly insulted the creator of his show, Chuck Lorre. It was a full-blown meltdown, and it was happening live on TV and the internet. The network had no choice. They fired their megastar and shut down production. They eventually rebooted the show with Ashton Kutcher replacing him. Charlie Sheen's behavior not only cost him the best job in television, but it also became a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame and excess. He burned the biggest bridge in his career in a blaze of glory. Sheen's meltdown got him fired from his show, but our next star managed to get her own smash hit show canceled because of her off-screen words. 3. Roseanne Barr.
I want you to rinse off this plate in the sink.
Whatever.
In the late 80s and 90s, Roseanne was more than just a sitcom. It was a cultural phenomenon. It showed a realistic, working-class American family in a way that had never been seen on TV before. At the center of it all was Roseanne Barr, who played the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense matriarch, Roseanne Connor. Roseanne was not just the star, she was the creative force behind the show, and she was known for being a tough, demanding, and often difficult boss who fought hard for her vision. She was powerful, and she knew it, which often led to clashes with writers and network executives. Fast forward to 2018, when the show was revived with the original cast. It was an instant, massive success, becoming the most watched show on television. It seemed like Roseanne was on top of the world once again. But then it all came crashing down. In a late-night social media post, Roseanne made a horribly offensive and color-coded comment about a former government official. The backlash was immediate and overwhelming. She tried to apologize, but the damage was done. The network, ABC, acted swiftly. Within hours, they canceled their #1 show, stating that her comments were abhorrent and inconsistent with their values. Her career, which had just been reborn, was over in an instant. The network later retooled the show as The Connors, with her character being written out of the story. It was a shocking fall from grace, all because of her own words. Roseanne's controversial words caused a modern scandal, but our next star's alleged on-set behavior created a toxic environment that simmered for years before finally boiling over. 4. Leah Michelle.
When I was little and I went on my first audition, they were like, "And may we have your name?" I was like, "Leah Michelle." And then I've been Leah Michelle ever since.
The musical comedy drama Glee was a massive hit that launched a whole new generation of stars. At the very center of that universe was Leah Michelle, who played the ambitious and talented, yet often self-centered, singer Rachel Berry. Rachel's drive to be a star was the main focus of the show, and Leah's powerful voice made her a fan favorite. She was the undisputed lead, and her character was portrayed as a classic diva who believed she was destined for greatness. It turns out that diva persona might not have been limited to her character. For years, there were whispers and rumors about her being difficult on the set of Glee. But in 2020, the floodgates opened. It all started when one of her former co-stars, Samantha Ware, publicly accused Leah of making her life a living hell on set. Samantha shared a story about Leah threatening to have her fired in front of the entire cast and crew. After that, many other actors from the show, including some of the main cast members, came forward with their own stories. They described a pattern of behavior where Leah was allegedly condescending, rude, and created a hostile atmosphere. The stories painted a picture of an actress who, much like her character, believed she was the star and treated her supporting cast poorly. The accusations were so widespread that they seriously tarnished her good girl image and forced her to issue a public apology for her past behavior. While Leah's alleged diva behavior hurt her co-stars' feelings, our next star's demands for more money fractured one of the most popular and beloved sitcoms of the 1970s. 5. Suzanne Somers.
Chrissy, hi! Folks okay? Oh, good. Good. No, there's nothing new here, except that Jack and Larry fallen in love. No, Chrissy, not with each other.
If you were watching TV in the late 1970s, there was no bigger show than Three's Company. It was a goofy, light-hearted comedy about two single women and a single man pretending to be a trio of roommates. The show's breakout star was undoubtedly Suzanne Somers, who played the bubbly, ditzy blonde, Chrissy Snow. With her infectious laugh and charming cluelessness, Chrissy became a national icon. Suzanne was on the cover of magazines, and her poster was on the wall of seemingly every teenage boy in America. She was a huge reason for the show's incredible success. But as the show entered its 5th season, things took a dramatic turn. Feeling that she was the main draw of the show, Suzanne, with the advice of her husband and manager, decided to demand a massive pay raise. She wanted to be paid on par with her male co-star, John Ritter, who was making significantly more. In fact, she asked for a salary of $150,000 per episode, plus a percentage of the show's profits. At the time, this was an unheard of amount of money. The network, ABC, flatly refused. The negotiations turned ugly and public. Her co-stars, Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter, felt that she was being greedy and was betraying the team spirit of the show. The network decided to play hardball. They reduced her role to just a few minutes per episode, filming her scenes separately from the rest of the cast. Eventually, they fired her altogether. The show was never quite the same, and the feud created a rift between the stars that lasted for decades. Suzanne's fight was about money, but our next star's on-set fight was deeply personal and led to his main co-star refusing to even be in the same room with him. 6. Martin Lawrence.
I don't even know why you're still here. Step! Step!
In the 90s, the sitcom Martin was a cornerstone of primetime television and a massive hit. It was powered by the explosive comedic talent of its star, Martin Lawrence. He played Martin Payne, a loudmouthed radio personality, and also played a whole host of other hilarious characters on the show, like his nosy neighbor, Shanae. A huge part of the show's heart was the relationship between Martin and his smart, loving girlfriend Gina, who was played by actress Tish Campbell. Their chemistry was perfect, and fans loved them as a couple. But behind the scenes, the relationship between the two lead actors was falling apart in a terrible way. As the show went on, Tisha became increasingly uncomfortable with Martin's on-set behavior. The situation got so bad that in 1997, she filed a lawsuit against Martin and the show's producers. In the lawsuit, she detailed claims of a pattern of awful and inappropriate behavior from him. She said that he would make unwanted advances and that he created a hostile and unsafe work environment. The situation became so toxic that she refused to film any more scenes with him. For the show's final season, the writers had to come up with creative ways to keep Martin and Gina in separate storylines so the two actors would never have to be on set at the same time. The lawsuit was eventually settled, but the damage was done. It was a sad and ugly end to what had been one of TV's most beloved on-screen couples. Martin's behavior allegedly drove his co-star away, but our next star's personal demons got so bad they threatened to bring down her entire top-rated network show. 7th Brett Butler, Grace Under Fire, was a massive hit in the mid-1990s. The show was centered around Grace Kelly, a sharp, witty single mom and recovering heavy drinker, played by stand-up comedian Brett Butler. The show was praised for its honest and funny portrayal of a blue-collar family, and a lot of its appeal came from Brett's own real-life struggles, which she was very open about. She was a fresh, authentic voice on television, and the show quickly shot to the top of the ratings, making her a huge star. But as her fame grew, the demons from her past came back to haunt her. Brett developed a serious addiction to pain medication, and her behavior on set became more and more erratic and unpredictable. There were stories of her showing up late, forgetting her lines, and getting into heated arguments with the cast and crew. The atmosphere became so toxic that other actors started leaving the show. The most infamous story involved her lifting her shirt and showing her chest to the young actor who played her son on the show. The situation got so out of control that production had to be shut down multiple times so she could try to get help. The network tried to keep their hit show alive, but her unreliability made it impossible. In the end, ABC had no choice but to cancel Grace Under Fire, not because of bad ratings, but because its main star was falling apart. Brett Butler's behavior was often self-destructive, but our next star became famous for directing his destructive and bizarre behavior at everyone around him. 8. Andy Dick. The 90s sitcom News Radio is remembered as one of the smartest and funniest shows of its era, with a cast full of amazing talent. That cast included a comedian named Andy Dick, who played the delightfully eccentric and clumsy reporter, Matthew Brock. Matthew was a lovable oddball who was always causing chaos at the fictional WNYX radio station. But in real life, Andy Dick's brand of chaos was far from lovable. It was often deeply troubling and made him one of the most notoriously difficult actors in Hollywood. Throughout his career, Andy Dick has been at the center of countless controversies due to his bizarre and often inappropriate public behavior. On the set of news radio, he was known for his strange antics, which sometimes crossed the line into harassment. He was known for touching people inappropriately and for his general unpredictability. His struggles with substance abuse were well known and often fueled his worst behavior. The most tragic story connected to him involves his co-star, Phil Hartman. According to reports, Phil's wife, Bryn, had a heated argument with Andy at a party shortly before the awful events of that night. She was reportedly upset with him for reintroducing Phil to harmful substances after he had been sober for years. Over the years, Andy has been fired from numerous movie sets and TV shows for his conduct, arrested multiple times, and has alienated many of his former friends and colleagues with his relentless and destructive antics. Andy Dick's reputation for being a troublemaker is legendary, but our next star tried to rewrite history by trashing his own cast in a shocking tell-all book. 9. Dustin Diamond.
I'll be all the Screech that I can be. Ow!
For a generation of kids, Saved by the Bell was the ultimate Saturday morning sitcom. The show about the fun-loving teens at Bayside High was a pop culture sensation, and one of its most memorable characters was the nerdy, goofy, and lovable Samuel Screech Powers, played by Dustin Diamond. Screech was the loyal best friend, the brilliant geek who was always there to help his friends with their wacky schemes. Dustin grew up on the show and was forever linked to his iconic character. However, after the show ended, Dustin seemed to grow resentful of his time as Screech. He felt typecast and struggled to find work. This bitterness led him to make a decision that would permanently burn his bridges with his former castmates. In 2009, he released a tell-all book titled Behind the Bell. In the book, he made a series of wild and scandalous claims about what happened behind the scenes of the show. He wrote about wild parties, inappropriate relationships between cast members and network executives, and painted his co-stars in a very unflattering light. The book caused a huge stir and deeply hurt the other actors, who denied the stories. Years later, Dustin admitted that the book was mostly fiction, fabricated by a ghostwriter who had exaggerated his stories. But the damage was done. He had betrayed the people he grew up with, and he was largely excluded from cast reunions and reboot projects for years as a result of his actions. Dustin Diamond betrayed his cast with a book of lies, but our next star committed a betrayal of trust so profound that it completely erased his legacy as America's most beloved dad. 10. Bill Cosby.
Well, can you buy a couple of more? See, everybody on the team has to sell 10.
How many have you sold?
Counting you?
2.
2.
Well, how many people have you asked?
Counting you?
Yeah,
2.
For decades, there was no one more beloved in television than Bill Cosby. As Dr. Cliff Huxtable on The Cosby Show, he wasn't just a character, he was America's dad. He was the warm, funny, and wise father figure in a wholesome family that everyone wished they could be a part of. The show was a groundbreaking cultural force, and he was its heart and soul. He built an entire empire on his image as a trustworthy, moral, and family-friendly entertainer. He was a role model for millions. But behind the colorful sweaters and the gentle, fatherly advice, a horrific and dark secret was hidden for decades. While he was presenting himself as a pillar of virtue to the public, he was allegedly using his immense fame and power to do terrible things. Over the years, more than 60 women came forward with disturbingly similar stories. They accused him of using his charming persona to gain their trust, only to then drug them and commit the most awful acts imaginable. The stories painted a picture not of a beloved entertainer, but of a calculated predator who preyed on unsuspecting women for years. The revelation was shocking and heartbreaking. It completely shattered the image of America's dad, replacing it with the reality of a man who had committed an unimaginable betrayal of public trust. His legacy is now forever stained, and his show, once a symbol of family joy, is now a painful reminder of the monster that was hiding in plain sight. Cosby's dark secrets were hidden for decades, but our next star's shocking outburst happened in the bright spotlight of a public stage, destroying his career in a matter of minutes. 11. Michael Richards.
Transylvania 65000.
On the legendary sitcom Seinfeld, one character stood out for his incredible physical comedy and bizarre energy, Cosmo Kramer. Played by Michael Richards, Kramer was a phenomenon. He would burst through Jerry's door and into the hearts of millions with his wild hair, vintage clothes, and spastic movements. Richards won 3 Emmy Awards for his performance and was celebrated as a comedic genius. He was so beloved as Kramer that it seemed his career after Seinfeld would be just as successful. But in 2006, his career and public image came to a sudden and shocking end. Richards was performing a stand-up set at the Laugh Factory Comedy Club in Hollywood when he was heckled by a group of audience members. Instead of handling it with a professional comeback, Richards completely lost control. He launched into a shocking and hateful tirade, repeatedly screaming color-coded slurs at the people who had heckled him. The entire ugly incident was captured on a cell phone camera and quickly went viral. The backlash was instant and absolute. The man everyone knew as the goofy, lovable Kramer was now seen as an angry, hate-filled person. He went on an apology tour, even appearing on David Letterman's show to express his regret, but the damage was irreversible. In those few minutes on stage, he had completely destroyed the goodwill he had built over decades. His acting career never recovered, and the incident remains one of the most stunning and complete career implosions in Hollywood history. Richards's career ended with a hateful tirade, but our next star's deeply held personal beliefs created a painful and awkward divide on the set of his wholesome family sitcom. 12. Kirk Cameron. In the 80s, Growing Pains was a top family sitcom, and its biggest star was Kirk Cameron, who played the charming, handsome, and slightly mischievous oldest son, Mike Seaver. He was a teen heartthrob, and his face was on the cover of every teen magazine. The show was a sweet-natured comedy about the Seaver family navigating life together, and Mike's rebellious but good-hearted nature was a huge part of its appeal. However, during the height of the show's popularity, Kirk underwent a major life change. He became a devout, born-again Christian, and his newfound faith began to clash with his role on the show. As his beliefs became more central to his life, he started to object to certain storylines and jokes that he felt were too adult or inappropriate. This created a lot of tension on set. He reportedly began to distance himself from his castmates and would review scripts to demand changes for things he didn't agree with. The most famous story involves him complaining to producers about his on-screen girlfriend, actress Julie McCullough. He was apparently upset that she had posed for a popular men's magazine in the past and allegedly had her fired from the show. His actions created a rift with his TV family, turning what was once a fun and friendly set into a more tense and divided environment. Kirk Cameron let his beliefs create friction with his TV family, but our next star is famous for being difficult with just about everyone, even on the sets of his most beloved projects. 13. Bill Murray. Bill Murray is more than just a sitcom star. He's a comedy legend and a beloved cultural icon. From his early days on Saturday Night Live to classic movies like Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day, he has created some of the most memorable characters in comedy history. In public, he has cultivated an image as a cool, funny guy who shows up at random parties and crashes wedding photos. He's seen as the quirky, hilarious uncle everyone wishes they had. But truth be told, behind that cool exterior is a man with a long-standing reputation for being incredibly moody and difficult to work with. He is famously hard to get in touch with, having no agent or manager, and can only be reached by calling a secret 1-800 number and leaving a message. The stories of his on-set behavior are legendary. On the set of What About Bob, his co-star Richard Dreyfuss described him as a bully who got physical with him. On the set of Charlie's Angels, actress Lucy Liu reportedly got into a huge confrontation with him after he insulted her acting ability. His decades-long friendship with his friend and collaborator Harold Ramis ended during the filming of Groundhog Day because Murray was being so mean-spirited and temperamental. The stories paint a picture of a comedic genius who is also capable of being sullen, unpredictable, and genuinely unkind, a far cry from the lovable goofball persona he often projects. Bill Murray's moodiness earned him a difficult reputation, but our next star wasn't just moody, she was the boss, and her relentless perfectionism made her a tyrant in the eyes of some. 14. Lucy Illball.
Well, honey, if we're gonna dance for the PTA, we should be dignified. We should stand at least 2 feet apart.
Lucy Illball is arguably the most important woman in the history of television. As Lucy Ricardo on I Love Lucy, she invented the modern sitcom and became the undisputed queen of comedy. Her amazing talent for physical comedy and her incredible charm made her a global superstar. To her audience, she was the lovable, scatterbrained redhead who was always getting into some kind of wacky trouble. She was funny, she was relatable, and everyone absolutely adored her. But here's the thing people often forget. Lucille Ball was not just an actress, she was a trailblazing and powerful executive. She and her husband, Desi Arnaz, started their own production company, Desilu Productions, which produced not only I Love Lucy, but also other massive hits like Star Trek and The Untouchables. After she and Desi split, she bought him out and became the first woman to run a major television studio. And as a boss, she was the polar opposite of the silly Lucy Ricardo character. She was a tough, iron-fisted perfectionist who demanded nothing but the best from everyone who worked for her. There are countless stories of her being incredibly demanding and harsh with writers, directors, and other actors. She was known to be short-tempered and would not hesitate to berate someone publicly if their work wasn't up to her incredibly high standards. While her drive for perfection is what made her shows so timeless, it also earned her a reputation as a difficult and intimidating tyrant to work for. Lucille Ball demanded perfection from everyone, but our final star's brand of difficult was just plain strange and unprofessional, leading to his messy firing from a hit HBO show he helped make famous. 15. T.J. Miller.
You look like an avocado. Had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado. Yeah.
The HBO sitcom Silicon Valley was a masterclass in smart comedy. It gave us a hilarious and often painfully accurate look at the wild world of the tech industry. For its first 4 seasons, the show's undeniable breakout star was T.J. Miller. He played Ehrlich Bachman, the loud, arrogant, and ridiculously confident owner of the startup incubator where the main characters lived and worked. Ehrlich was a walking train wreck of bad ideas and unearned swagger, yet he was absolutely magnetic on screen. He wasn't just a side character, he was a core part of the show's DNA, the chaotic force that pushed the story forward. T.J. Miller seemed born to play the part, and his performance turned him into a huge, in-demand star almost overnight. He was the face of the show for many fans. That's why everyone was so completely stunned when it was announced that he would not be returning for the 5th season, right at the peak of the show's popularity. At first, the official story was that it was a mutual and creative decision to write Ehrlich out of the show. But the truth, as it so often does, turned out to be a whole lot messier and more complicated. Soon after his exit, Miller began doing interviews where he openly criticized the show and its creative team. He claimed he was getting bored with the role and felt the series was becoming repetitive. He even took personal shots at the show's producer, Alec Berg, suggesting he wasn't funny enough. Miller was trying to paint a picture that he was simply too brilliant and creative to be held back by a network sitcom anymore. However, the producers and his former co-stars started telling a very different story. They revealed that Miller had become almost impossible to work with. The reports from the set described a pattern of unprofessional behavior. He would allegedly show up late for filming, or sometimes not at all. People said he often seemed to be under the influence of something, making it difficult for him to remember his lines and perform. The environment on set grew tense and unpredictable. His co-star, Alice Wetterlund, later spoke out very bluntly about her experience. She called him a bully and a petulant brat, and described a generally unpleasant and male-dominated atmosphere where his bad behavior was often excused. Her story painted a much darker picture than him just being a lazy actor. It suggested he was actively making the workplace hostile for others. This, combined with other bizarre public incidents, like his arrest for calling in a fake emergency on a train, showed a star whose real-life chaos had become too much for the show to handle. The situation proved that even on a series about brilliant but difficult personalities, there's a limit to what cast and crew will tolerate, especially when the breakout star becomes the biggest problem on set.